Well, hello, everyone. My name is Mary Reed Sheffer, and I'm the Director of Employment Services at Edge Employment in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Chair of the Employer Education and Engagement Committee of the Employment First Council. On behalf of the Kentucky Employment First Council, I'd like to welcome you to Part 2 of Enhancing Employer Engagement. This webinar series is a collaboration between Kentucky Employment First and the Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or ODEP. ODEP is supporting Kentucky's Employment First work through their multi-year National Expansion of Employment Networks, or NEON initiative, launched in 2019, with project management support provided by EconSys. Our presenter, Steve Blanks, is a subject matter expert with the NEON initiative. Steve is also the Director of Partnerships at a Maryland-based CRP called SEEK. We will be offering certificates showing hours of training at the end of each webinar. We will put a link to an evaluation in the chat box at the end of the presentation. Once you complete this evaluation and some action questions in response to the content, you will be provided a certificate. Thank you for being here, and I'll pass it over to Steve.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary, and thank everybody for joining us. I know people will trickle in as we kind of get started here. I'm going to share my screen to kind of launch off. And I'm going to make sure that I can see everyone in the interim. So thumbs up that you can see my screen. Great. Awesome. All right. So I must have done something right that you've welcomed me back. I appreciate that. I know there was a three-part series, but sometimes, you never know how the first one's going to go and if people are going to want you back. But I'm here. I appreciate that. This is a great series. For those of you that joined us, hopefully you got a lot out of the connecting phase. And now we're going to turn into kind of the second phase where we're going to sort of talk about deepening those relationships that we've started to warm up. But before we kind of start off, I wanted to kind of let me see, that's working. You can get this at the end, actually. This, if you have the opportunity at the end, I'm going to put up my information in here. There's a QR code you can take a picture of, but this is a link to my LinkedIn profile. And as we talked about a lot last time around connecting, LinkedIn is a really important piece of kind of that networking awareness. So feel free to link in with me. I may not be the most helpful in connecting in Kentucky, but you never know, right? You never know who I might know that might be useful to you. So feel free to connect with me. But before we kind of dive into this phase of work and talk a little bit more about what we're going to do today, I wanted to kind of reflect on what we talked about last time and also reflect on kind of what you did. So as part of the survey, the 70 to 80 people that did the survey, thank you. Really appreciate that feedback. Helps me as a presenter and hopefully helps kind of you guys. A lot of you had these action items that you wanted to do. And again, like anything, for me, a webinar is great. It's awesome. I love being able to present to different groups, but if you're not going to do anything with the information, it's kind of a waste of time, right? So we really want to think about what we're going to do about it. So this is just a chart that we got from the feedback that says 72% of those who responded were going to visit small businesses, all the way down to 12% were going to create this digital business card. And I love interaction, which is really hard to do virtually. So I want people to throw into the chat, if you did any one of these things, attend a chamber event, attend a service club, kind of explored your weak or dormant ties as people you haven't connected in a while, or try to explore agency connections that maybe you didn't know before. What did you do? And how did it go? Like, was there something new that you did that was like, oh, wow, that worked out really well? Or something you did that like, that didn't work out at all, right, Steve? That was a really bad idea. So throw it in the chat. This is about sharing information. It's about learning from each other. I think I was a little surprised that the LinkedIn profile, that the updating and creating it was kind of something that was important to you. I think that's great. As I said, that's really an important networking tool. It's an important way to get out there. I'd like to kind of know if people used it in such a way that they were able to connect with new people in the last month. If there was anything that you got from those agency connections, right? Talking to a board member, talking to maybe senior people in your agency, that brought you kind of new connections or new awareness. Throw it in the chat. I definitely want to sort of keep that kind of idea of action and keep that idea of moving forward. Jessica got in there to use the identify agency connections, make connection with auto insurance connector. That's awesome. I love that. Really fantastic. Um, And I was surprised also that we didn't touch on this until really quite at the end, the creating a tracker. So I think that's an important piece. You're going to start collecting a lot of prospects or have a lot of prospects. So having that idea of kind of tracking them and seeing where they are in this phase. And you might want to use this three-phase approach that we've got, like the connection, the consideration, and the conversion of like seeing where they're at and what it takes to get them through in any of those. Specifically, I do want to ask about the BNI, the Business Networking International. Did anyone explore that, and did anyone make any connections with that, and did anyone have a chance to sort of go meet with a BNI? And again, throw it in the chat. It's not as interactive as I'd like it to be, but I'd like to kind of hear feedback from people. Belinda visited two small businesses. They went well. I scheduled for a job shadowing for a client the next time. Okay, right? So this is perfect. I'm glad that people are moving forward and using the work to kind of come to the next step. All right, so and keep those plans, keep those things coming in. 3 chamber events going on tomorrow, 3 small businesses, and updating the profile. Excellent. I use LinkedIn to search specific items within industries of interest, and there was a mutual connection. That's how it works, right? So just a recap for those of you who were with us last time, for those of you that weren't with us. Um, let's kind of ground ourselves where we've come from and where we're going to go going forward. So first and foremost, right, we are workforce development professionals. When we're presenting ourselves, when we're thinking about ourselves in front of employers, that's who we are. We are workforce development professionals first. We're in this business called consultative sales. We're not hardcore sales. We're not used car salesmen. We're in this consultative sales. We're developing relationships. We're thinking about long term. And most importantly, we're trying to understand businesses and understand what they need and how we fit into that or don't fit into that. We provide custom staffing solutions, right? Every business out there uses Indeed or ZipRecruiter or one of those things to fill their staffing needs. What are we different about? Well, we come in and understand you. We've got custom solutions. We're going to match people that we've already checked out, we're qualified and screened and matched, right? To this idea of job matching. So that's our competitive advantage when we kind of think about staffing. We're also striving for adding value, right? So why would we spend so much time getting to know employers and understand what they do and understand their good, their bad, and their ugly, their pain points? Because that's how we add value, is understanding them as best we can. And we're striving for those long-term relationships. You know, this idea of job placement, job development, looking for jobs, that is such a short-term focus, and it's about kind of getting it done quickly and moving on. And I know sometimes our funding streams and our systems are set up that way, but we need to think long term. We need to think about constant relationships and developing deeper and deeper relationships. More stuff coming in here. I was invited to present at a local Rotary Club. Fantastic. Good appointment with a local credit union. Learned about the jobs. Updating LinkedIn profile. Great. I love it. So this makes sense. For those of you who weren't with us last time, but those of you that were with us last time, does this all kind of resonate? You remember kind of where we're coming from, workforce development professionals, consultative sales. That's going to feed through a lot of the work today, this morning, and then feed on to kind of the last webinar next month as well. And that little guy in the top right, for those of you, again, who might remember, or those of you who didn't see, this is my Simpsons character, Superman equivalent. He is Mr. Everyone, which is kind of what we have to be, right? We have to be all things to all people. We have to kind of understand, like we've got here, the credit union or the insurance salesman or the car mechanic or whatever it is. And so we're always being superheroes to the people we support, the job seekers with disabilities, but also those employers, and understanding that dual relationship. So that's why he's our kind of superhero going through this. One thing I wanted to touch on, because this came up in the chat from last time, was this idea of these 5-minute favors. And so a little bit of context. One thing that we learned was the most amazing networker in the world was this guy called Adam Rifkin, who was this self-described nerdy guy from Silicon Valley, who was a bit of an introvert and wasn't good at networking. But several years later, through some of his techniques, he became seen as the biggest networker in LinkedIn's kind of history, and was sort of featured in many articles and featured in an Adam Grant book about give and take. And one of the things that he said was one of his practices was this idea of a 5-minute favor, right? So something that's not a heavy lift, not something that's going to derail what you do as a work, but something you can do on the side. And it's a way of giving to your network, giving to your relationships, and something easily done. And so I just threw up some ideas in here of some 5-minute favors I was able to kind of pull from, sharing articles of interest. So if you're talking to insurance salesman, you may come across something that talks about inclusive employment in insurance and putting that forward together, right? But but better than just sharing it, sometimes if you've read an article that you think pertains to an employer or a relationship you have, synthesize that for them, right? Share the article, but actually give them the highlights so they don't have to kind of read too far along with it. Introducing themselves to somebody that might be of interest to them, and that could be personally or professionally, sending them a referral, no brainer, right? That's what they're about. That's where we add value. It's like, I get you a new customer and hopefully they get another customer. That is why that Business Networking International is so amazing, right? Like every week they are giving referrals to each other. And I almost think like, how do we replicate that for us, right? Like how could we have a system of providers coming together and sharing that idea of leads and resources and so on and so forth. And I know the work that Kitty does with the coalition does a lot of that. But maybe that's something we can kind of replicate across the state of Kentucky and across this country, right? How cool would that be? Recommending a business, sharing and commenting and reposting. So social media, right? That we do this all the time, and that's why LinkedIn is so important from a professional perspective and a professional platform. And just giving it a like, giving it a thumbs up, giving it a sharing. It's creating awareness for them, and it's also creating awareness for you. And people see that. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I see people who sort of like or comment on anything that we do at Seek or what I do, it gives me some warm and fuzzies, right? And you kind of want that. You want that in deepening that connection. Offer valuable feedback. So I came across somebody's LinkedIn profile and I was just checking it out and looked at it, and I saw a couple of spelling mistakes. And I'm like, I'm sure they don't want that. I'm sure that's not how they want to reflect themselves. So I gave them that feedback, right? And they totally appreciated it. It really, again, sort of said, hey, you care about me. You're genuinely curious about me. You're not just scantily looking at something. And I think those are just really, really important. Offer valuable feedback if their website or customer service or something is something you can give them feedback. And then I love this one because it's kind of, again, it goes beyond kind of the professional, and it talks about how you're developing the relationships beyond just this customer business transaction things, like getting to know them as a human, as a person, and their family and whatever else that may be in the connections. Like you may find out they love Thai food, right? And you just came across this great Thai restaurant. Well, share it with them. Again, it's all of these excuses to connect, all of these excuses to deepen that relationship. And I just love this idea of a 5-minute favor. And again, question to put into the chat, keep this interactive so you guys are with me on this. If you've got other ideas of 5-minute favors or things that have worked for you, throw it in the chat. You're learning a little bit from me, but hopefully you're learning from this whole network of people in this room, of other ideas. So throw it in the chat and we'll read some out as they come along. So, so let's get into what we're doing today. Let's get back into kind of this 3-phase concept. As I look at employer engagement, and again, not generated from brand, empty piece of paper. This is generated from how typical for-profit businesses think about their customer engagement, right? And so I've kind of shrunk it down into 4 phases. Some people do 5 phases, but this idea of the connection. Firstly, you've got to make awareness. You've got to have people be aware of who you are, what your product is, what your service is, who you are as a professional. And that's what we talked about last month. And that end goal of that is people know who you are, right? They're aware of your situation. They're aware you're providing these custom staffing solutions, and they're aware how you can help them. That maybe not all the way through it, because that's kind of where we move into this consideration phase. This consideration phase is I've got that awareness with you, and now I'm going to go deep. I'm going to deepen that relationship. I'm going to further my rapport with you. I'm going to start understanding your business, how it works, how it ticks, how it doesn't tick, and start thinking about how I match up with you from a service and how the job seekers I have match up as a placement opportunity, deepening that relationship and getting closer to closure, which is in that 3rd phase of this conversion, or you might call it closure, where we're really trying to get that placement happening, right? Or some form of tangible interaction where that employer commits to you. And it might be as simple as an internship to start with, but hopefully it's a job placement and a long-term relationship, and we keep deepening it. And I don't think I touched on this much last month, but that phase 4, the continuation, we'll talk a lot more about it next month, but that's equally important, right? Because what we're always trying to do here is extend the relationship. We keep talking about that. And why do we do that? Because it's easier to get that second placement, that second workforce development opportunity from a same customer than finding a new customer. It's so much easier. This is basic common business sense. It's easier to keep a customer than to sort of keep finding new customers. It's easier to take a customer and upsell them or give them more products and services than it is to find a new customer. So it's constantly about that relationship building and deepening the connection. So yeah, that's our 4 phases. We're going to dive into consideration right now and get deeper on here. And in this consideration phase, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to get at here? We're trying to, as I say, continue to develop and deepen the rapport. Hopefully in connection and awareness, we've made that connection. They're connected with us. They want to do more with us. And now we've got to go deeper and solidify that connection. We want to understand their fundamental business. We might have a sense of what they do if they sell insurance or the credit union, but we've got to kind of put down our assumptions about what they do and really learn about who they are, their specifics, their nuances, how they do their work, understanding their pain points. I like to use this term a lot. It seems to resonate with a lot of businesses. So instead of kind of what's not working for you or what your challenges are, what are your pain points? Like what's keeping you up at night, right? Like what are you struggling with? And it might be finding staff, but it may also just be there's a lot of waste. And we're going to talk a lot about waste later in this webinar today. Understanding what they're not getting to do, understanding what they're not able to achieve for their customers, or customers are asking for them and they're not able to kind of get to it. Again, there might be some growth that they want to do or just some quality gaps that they have. Understand, of course, how they staff, recruit, and onboard, because that's really what we're here to do with them. And then that value. Understanding how we can deliver value through a solid job match with them. So that's what we're trying to get out of this whole phase of consideration. And what we're going to do is touch on these concepts throughout today going forward. So we're going to keep coming back to this idea of business thinking and shift our thinking from our other customer, the people with disabilities, the job seekers, into business minds, always getting that business head on when we're kind of talking to employers. We're going to talk a lot about curiosity, and I apologize ahead of time. I'm a curiosity nerd. I just am. You're going to hear me use this term a lot, and you're going to be bored of it by the end of it, but I'm going to keep hammering it on because I think it's become kind of one of these central tenets to businesses is the intentionality of curiosity. If you're not a curious person, you're missing out, right? You're kind of not open to opportunities. You're probably not as creative. And it works not only for the employer side, it actually works really well for the people we support. If you make some assumptions about the people we support, you might not put them in the job that really is the best match for them. If you make assumptions about who they are and what they want to do, you're going to probably not come up with a good job match. That curiosity works for both of our customers, our job seekers as well as our employers. So I'm going to talk a lot about that, and I'm a total nerd on it. So just bear with me. We're going to talk about lean thinking. So some of you probably who maybe have been in manufacturing or work a lot with manufacturing have probably heard of this idea of lean principles. It came out of the 50s and 60s with Toyota and a lot of the Japanese car manufacturers. And it's really stayed mainly in manufacturing, but of late, the last probably couple of decades, it's moved into different fields. Hospitals and healthcare are using it a lot, but banks use it. Many different organizations use this idea of lean. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I've got this great video that talks about the 8 types of waste. And again, I think this is an opportunity for us to, again, be business thinking and help, especially small and medium-sized businesses who don't have armies of lean, Six Sigma people behind them who are struggling with trying to how to make their organizations more efficient. I'm going to talk about problem finding, not problem solving. A lot of discussion in businesses is, I've got to be a problem solver. I need a problem solver. It's like when you hire someone, I want a problem solver. I actually want problem finders, right? Because once I know what the problem is and the clarity around the problem, and I've really dug deep and been curious about the problem, then I know how to fix it because I know exactly what I'm trying to fix. Because often solve problems, the wrong problem, right? We haven't got to the root cause of what that actual issue is. So I want problem finders, not problem solvers. And again, when you're walking around a business or talking to a business, you need to be that problem finder. You're going to be eventually a problem solver, but you need to be a problem finder. Job and task analyses, you know about this a lot. We're going to touch on that. That's really important about understanding how the world of work works, ways to engage in the interim, and then how to maintain relationships for the longer term. So makes sense. That's kind of what we're going to dive into today. I promise you that we've got 2 breakouts and hopefully a break in the middle if my timing works well. One of the things I did get back from feedback is we wanted time for Q&A. I'm going to look at Mary or Brandon maybe to look in the chat if I miss things or questions that come up, to stop me, to say, time out, Steve, there's a question in here. But I'll try to build in some time for questions as well. But my approach is, if you've got a question that's burning, just dump it into the chat. We'll try to address it as we go along, okay? All right. So curiosity. So I told you we're going to talk about curiosity here. So curiosity's got a bit of a bad rap, right? We always think about the concept of curiosity killed the cat. And I actually did a little bit of research into this. You can tell I'm a nerd, right? So this actually dates back to Shakespeare times, and it actually came back in the 1500s. But the first time it was actually used was in Ireland in a newspaper article, and the first time it kind of came a headline was in the 20th century through the Washington Post, where actually a cat got stuck in a chimney flue and died. And that was the headline, right? You talk about the importance of news back then. And so this idea of curiosity killing the cat was kind of developed out of that. But it's something we talk about, right? We talk about our kids and we use this phrase a lot. And sometimes it squashes and sort of undermines people kind of thinking about curiosity. So it's just, a little bit of context. And then, we've got this guy, this Curious George, this monkey that's always getting himself into trouble, right? He's curious about what's happening. He's looking into things, and then he's always in trouble, right? So again, as kids grow up, they keep hearing this message that don't ask questions, right? It's kind of unfortunate, but it's just the way the world is. And so this number is really interesting to me. And just quickly, anyone should have shout out into the chat what you think this number is as it relates to curiosity. Don't all write at once. The answer to everything. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate that. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy again is this crazy nerdy book. Yeah, you know that, right? 42 is the answer to everything, not 73. So no one's chiming in there, so I'm just going to jump in. So 73, number of questions it takes to make a job match. Oh, how cool would that be, right? Like we could really track that down. How many times the cat was killed? Even better. 9 lives. So at 73, you've killed 8 cats at that point, right? So 73 allegedly. I just pulled this stuff up, right? So allegedly, this is the average number of questions a kid asks every day. So who has kids, right? Who has kind of 6, 7, 10, 11-year-old? Right? 73, like it's got to be much more than 73, right? But it's a spectrum, right? There's some people who are asking a few, and then there's some, my kid, that why question 120 times a day, right? But what's interesting and what's sad, I guess, is as adults, this number is closer to 20. Right. So something happens over time. And again, I go back to this curiosity killed the cat and Curious George getting into trouble. We ask less questions as we grow up. We maybe seem to come less curious. I'm not sure that's 100% true, but these statistics are 100% true. So it's just, again, kind of think about like how you do, like how do you ask questions? Are you curious about what's happening around you inside your organization with your colleagues, but also importantly, kind of when we're walking out with employers? Just a little kind of fun around curiosity. So, so I'm not the only curious nerd out there, which is kind of exciting to hear. There are people who write books about this. So this young man, I'm going to introduce him very briefly. He has a book around curiosity. And when you see the end of the video, I have to sort of say there's no conflict of interest here, even though the book title has Seek in the name of it. It's spelled differently, it has nothing to do with us as an organization, but it's either, seeking information. So let's just listen to this, and maybe we can, again, as you're listening to this video, if you can go into the chat, the things that resonate with you, and I'll share a little bit about some of the things that resonate with me. It's just a couple of minutes long, kind of fun. And Mary, thumbs up if the sound's working. It should be okay.
We're back on this Motivational Monday with a deep look into what it means to be truly curious and what curiosity can actually bring. Scott Shigeoka is a fellow at UC Berkeley and the author of a new book out tomorrow titled Seek: How Curiosity Can Transform Your Life and Change the World. Oh. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Nice to have you here.
Yeah. So, I already remember when growing up, the saying was curiosity killed the cat. But the fact is, natural curiosity is something that we really need to push ourselves into. Totally. What are the benefits of actually pushing your curiosity outside of your curiosity box?
Yeah, well, I think you four are like great examples of curiosity ambassadors. You're asking questions, you're very open, you're leaning in. Like, those are all things that represent curiosity. Mm-hmm. But we often think about it as just this intellectual tool. I want to learn about something on Wikipedia or want to read something in a book, which is great, but there's also a heart-centered curiosity, and that's what heart-centered. It comes from the heart, and it's a way of connecting. It's what we use with our kids, our parents, our family, our loved ones. We ask them questions, and we're genuinely interested in them, and that's what it's all about. Curiosity is about making people feel like they matter because you're genuinely interested in getting to know them.
And sometimes the key to being curious, I think, is asking the right questions, right?
Yeah.
Like, not just asking something superficial, but something that seems natural and like you're really genuinely interested.
Totally.
How do you do that?
Yeah, you can start, there's curiosity is a spectrum. So there's shallow on one side, which is kind of like, what's your name? Or what do you do for a job? Which are great. They give you some information. It's helpful, but it can keep things kind of surface level. So as you move down the spectrum towards deep curiosity, you can ask questions like, what's the story of your name? Where does it come from? Who named you? Tell me about them. Or, what excites you in your job? What are you going to really fire it up about? I mean, I don't know, we can model it. That's a great way of sharing it. So for instance, so the story of my name, I'm Scott Keone Shigeoka. It represents the three cultures of my life. Scott, my American side, Keone, my born and raised in Hawaii side, and then Shigeoka is my Japanese side, which means the layers of mountains as they disappear in the distance, which is beautiful.
But it helps us get to know you that quickly.
Yeah, like Chanel.
I love that.
Take some layers off of it, I love that.
Yeah, Chanel, what's the story of your name? I mean, would you be open to sharing?
Sure, my mom is Sheila, which is why I have that EI in my name, and my dad is Darnell.
There you go. Boom.
And it came together.
That was easy.
So it's interesting because, we ask questions for a living, but there are times I go to a work party or a function, and all of a sudden my brain forgets how to ask questions.
Totally.
I mean, how do we ask the right questions to get somebody to open up without seeming forceful?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I grew up in Hawaii. It's kind of like the ocean. You want to start off, maybe with a little bit of the shallow before you move into the deep. Like, you wouldn't want to necessarily go up to someone and be like, what's the hardest thing you went through in your childhood? It's really, that's pretty intense. It's like, okay, slow down. Love that you're being curious, but curiosity is not deserved, right? Like, it's earned, you got to build that trust, that relationship. Like, I got to know you before you're, asking me those kinds of questions. But that's really when we feel seen and heard, is when people are willing to go deep and they sit you down and they're looking you in the eyes and no, I want to know you. I want to know about your parents that named you. I want to know what your family was like. What was it like growing up? And that people feel, wow, oh my God, you value me. That's so beautiful.
Who's really good at that? Harry Smith.
Yes.
In our building. I feel like he's the most curious, but everybody feels so seen by Harry.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're out of time really quickly. The line between nosy and curious, where is it?
Yeah, so you got to be like, is this the right time to be curious right now? Sometimes it's not. Am I the right person, right? Maybe you and your partner are talking about that person at work that was oh gosh, they we're having some conflict right now. That's your partner's, job. Maybe not the time for you to come up and say, hey, this is what I heard, so making sure that it's the right time. Are you the right person? And do you know when to stop and slow down, Sometimes people, you can tell, oh, they're getting a little bit too much with their questions,
That's great. Well, Scott, this is some great stuff. Can't wait to see the
you're
book.
great.
No, you're great. The book is Seek, and it's available tomorrow. Third hour today. Right back.
So I didn't look into the chat in there, but yeah, curiosity is earned. I think that's really important, right? I ask a lot of questions, and it sometimes feels like I'm interrogating people, right? Like I go way
One
too
of my
deep, and
favorite
I'm,
questions to ask older couples
hey,
is
hi,
one
Dynel.
piece of
Dynel,
advice
can you
they
mute
would
yourself?
offer.
Perfect, thank you. So it's like, oh my gosh, how do I balance this? And you have to. It's a give and a take, right? It's a reciprocal. You've got to give some information, so you've got to actively listen. You've got to deeply listen, and then you've got to be a little bit vulnerable, right? It's got to be reciprocal, and that can be tricky if you're not used to it. So definitely a practice thing. Boundaries and context. Oh my gosh, yeah. So respecting boundaries. I think I was going to tell this story later, but I'll tell it now. I was at a meeting with a Marriott hotel at their fancy international headquarters, which is just around the corner from us. And we got this meeting set up. So this is back to agency connections. So we're in partnership with a real estate company for where our offices are, and we spoke to the head of that real estate company, and they said, how can we help? And we said, well, if you know people, let's connect, right? And so they said, well, we were very involved with the Marriott building. We can probably connect you with the Marriott hotel. I'm like, thumbs up, let's do that. So they got the setup with the GM, met with the GM, and we had a great conversation. And one of the team members with me, I don't know, it was like 12 minutes into the conversation. It was a little random, right? Just commented on this younger HR person we were meeting with on the quality of their hair. And I was like, okay, all right. Wasn't the right time or the right place or the right message that we were sending around professional boundaries, right? She has a way about herself that she can get herself into these circumstances, and actually, it's done clearly in a way of care and compassion and empathy, but it can sometimes come across unprofessional, right? And so it is a boundary, and you have to check yourself. And it's not like my boundaries are going to be the same as Mary's or Ken's or Troy's, right? We're going to have different boundaries, and as well as the other person. But this idea of starting shallow and building rapport to deep curiosity and then earning it, I think is just a really interesting point to sort of keep thinking about as you're kind of working with people. Fast-paced society has led to others feeling like you're invading their time. Oh, that's interesting. Huge difference between truly curious and superficial and nosy. Yeah. I think it's a bit of a magic. It's an art and a science with respect to how do you not interrogate like I sometimes can do, and how do you again make sure that you're genuinely interested. And I think, some of the secret sauce is if you're asking the questions about how that business owner, that manager is feeling about their business, you start caring about genuinely what they're caring about, right? They care about how their employees are doing or the turnover. They care about they're selling more or costs are increasing. If you can get yourself to that point of caring about the things they care about, then you're in sync with them, right? You've got an empathy with them. Now, you may not be able to solve all of those things. You may be able to solve some of them, but it's just an important piece of showing that genuine interest and caring that I think is really critical. So how did that video kind of resonate? Make sense? Let me get out of there. Great. One question I love to ask when speaking to older couples is, what would be one piece of advice you'd give to a younger couple? Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah. It reminds me of when Harry met Sally, right? When they have those old couples on the couch and they talk about kind of that advice. Yeah, I think sometimes that age gap is an issue. So young people in this field, when they come in, they don't maybe have a lot of experience or a lot of backgrounds. So they're thinking, how am I going to talk to this my age, old person, about their job and stuff like that? And I think a naive curiosity is really important, right? Because I do find in general, us older folks do want to help the next generation, right? Learn, grow, develop. So if you're a younger person new to the field, I think coming in with a naivety of trying to learn and get exposure to a wider set of industries and fields, I think that's okay. I think that's a genuine way of improving yourself and genuine way again of connecting. So great. I love that. So again, just kind of moving on here, and I promised that this curiosity tirade will end soon. But this idea of curious listening is really about relationship, right? This is what we're trying to do. We've talked all the way through this about long-term relationships, about deepening those relationships, about building on it. And it comes into trust and respect. I'm going to talk a little bit about trust and trusted advisor later on here, human connection, and the person feels listened to, right? Too often we get into these conversations and these interrogations, and you're just asking questions because you are coming from, I need to learn these 16 things, right? My boss told me I've got to have these 16 things. I've got to have a form that's filled out, and you're not listening to what they're saying. You're just ready for the next question. You're just going. And that is the quickest way to kind of devolve the conversation, right? Because they see your eyes, they see you're focusing on writing stuff down, they see you're focusing on a form. And again, that is a skill to be able to engage with people while retaining notes. Sometimes people worry too much about note taking and less about that connection. And it's okay if you lose a couple of facts, right? It's totally okay, because you know why? It gives you a reason to go back. It's like, I remember you mentioned something about blah, blah, blah. It's a perfect reason to come back and connect with them. I really missed that point. I'm sorry. I just didn't fully understand it. Gives you a reason to come back. And you're always looking for a reason to come back. You're looking for a reason to interact. You're looking for a reason to sort of focus that in. So be present, right? Don't be thinking about, I've got to get that report in. My timesheet's not done. Be present with that person. Stay focused on that person. Listen with an attitude of genuine, deep curiosity and empathy, right? And it's really hard sometimes, us in the cheap nonprofit seats coming to these big for-profit businesses and having empathy for them. Fake it till you make it, right? Sometimes you've got to kind of just figure out how to connect with them. And if they're all about, money, 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 and profits and profits and profits, that still is a ticket for you to potentially place somebody, right? It's still a ticket for you to get somebody in there. It's still a ticket for you to sort of make that connection. So sometimes it might feel uncomfortable, but you can rise to that. These mindful mindsets, we've talked a lot about mindfulness. We've heard a lot of it. Do ignore your internal noise. I like that. Listen to the words of the other person's words and sense how they're feeling. Are they uncomfortable with your questions? Are they moving along? Are they excited to share their story? Don't judge, right? Again, it's really hard. I think we're in the world of kind of a lot of conflict and a variety of different things, and judging people where they're coming from. It's just a skill that we all need to practice every day, like reducing that jumping to judgment, formulating a response in your mind, and trying to memorize anything. So again, be graceful with yourself. Give yourselves grace. You're not going to remember everything that was said. You're not going to remember all the conversations. You want the highlights. You want a highlight reel, right? Whenever we look at CNN or ESPN, or there's a highlight reel, we don't get all the deets. We get the whole kind of top aspects of it. Communication is the key to every relationship. Obviously, Troy, well done. And Shalise, listen to understand and speak to be understood. Oh my gosh, that's the mantra we need to sort of go with. I love that. Thank you. All right, so I told you we were going to break out. So Brandon, get yourself ready here. Just before we go into breakout, and I think given our timing, we can probably do a full 10 minutes. I want you guys in your groups to talk about some of the questions you use, some of the topics and things that you talk about with employers as you're out there, to try and learn a little bit more about what they do, but also building rapport, getting behind the scenes, getting around kind of what they initially want to show you, to sort of get behind kind of the immediate door, and understand their workforce needs, and most importantly, how you deepen those connections. So we're going to send you out into groups of 10. You don't have to formally have a note taker and come back, but what I'd love to do is, if there's one or two people in each of your groups that can sort of synthesize some of the discussion, throw it in the chat when you come back. We'll talk a little bit about that. Have fun, and get those curiosity hats on. Yeah, how did that conversation go? Throw into the chat anything new or learned, or some kind of cool questions that people use that are kind of getting behind the scenes, or kind of building that rapport or deepening that connection. So here, what the hiring process looks like, what type of employees, if they're second chance friendly. I like that. Bottlenecks. Yeah, that's a big one that people talk about. How long have people worked there? Turnover rate, of course. What are employees trying to get done between their real job? Huh. I like that. Oh my gosh, if you magically had an assistant tomorrow, genius, right? Everyone's got a list of things that they would love to kind of move on to somebody else. Think of your most stretched employees and what would you take off their plate? Great. Any other thoughts, any other questions that came to mind? Employees' mission. Great. Yeah, we talk about our mission all the time. So why wouldn't we want to know theirs? Getting to know the business, establish a professional relationship, take the tour. Yeah, tours are vital, right? Those are a critical step in this consideration. And sometimes you're at a business like an insurance agency. There's not much to tour, but people are usually proud of showing what they've got, whatever their office might be, whatever their desk looks like. They're kind of proud of showing it. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask for a tour. You might think, what am I going to tour in an insurance agency? But you know what? They're going to want to show it off. Timing is key. When should I ask questions about turnover and retention? Yeah, it's hard to sort of say when, like in the 17th minute of a conversation or on the third visit. It's a flow thing, right? It's like what if you've gotten into a flow to talk about staffing and you talk a little bit about how long do people stay, like in Mary's group, then naturally turnover or retention is coming up, and that's a place to sort of start to dig a little bit deeper again. Find out the contact person, developing trust. We're going to talk a lot about that after the break. And a lot of stigma and fear of the ADA, of course. And again, we're going to talk more about that next month when we try to tackle those myths, right? Those deal breakers that come out there. Culture, yeah, huge. Incentives, absenteeism, family and business, right? You can take a digital tour, see what someone does on the computer. Yeah, again, you kind of have to earn that step, right? You can't just kind of go in and like, okay, let me look over your shoulder about what you're doing with that spreadsheet and all those numbers. But if you've warmed that relationship up enough, they're going to invite you in, right? Because you may have some different ideas of how to lay things out. And Dynel, what qualities does your company value? Yeah. Like you kind of want to ask them, who's your all-star, right? Like who's your poster child for like your best employee? And what is it about them, right? That makes them that, right? Is it they show up every day, they show up early? Is it they just go above and beyond? And what comes out of that is their language, right? You want that manager, that hiring decision person, that owner to tell you their language. And that language is the feelings piece that's hard to sometimes get on a job description or whatever. You want to kind of get those feelings because those are the feelings you're going to put right back at them when you're sort of giving them a proposal, right? Really good stuff. Excellent. Okay, moving on here. Let's do that. So just sample questions that I often use. I like to kind of warm things up. It's like, why did you get into the insurance agency or the credit union? Like, tell me about you, right, as a human, right? Like, what is it about this field or this company that kind of got you excited? How did the business start? If you are talking to the owner or the person who started it, it's they love to tell their story, right? And it gives you, again, so much more information about who they are and why they did it, right? And the why is always what we're trying to look for. Pain points we've talked about, log jams, I think one of the groups mentioned. What does the business look like in 5, 10 plus years? I want to know the vision, right? Like not just today and what the issues are. I want to know where you're going, right? Where do you see yourself? Are you going to be this 5-person group that's going to be 50 people? Are you going to be across the state of Kentucky, across the world? Where's your thoughts on that? Because it's their feeling about where it's going to go. How do you find good talent? What makes a good employee? And how do you ensure talent grows and stays with the organization? So yeah, there's a range of questions, and they're all fantastic ways of kind of deepening that connection, showing genuine curiosity, and building a compassion for kind of their business. Very quickly, just going to show this concept, humble inquiry. Some of you may have heard of it by a bit of a legend in the leadership development field, Edgar Schein. And he talks a lot, mostly kind of as we think about our own businesses and how we bring people along. Often as managers or supervisors, we tell people to do, or people come to you and say, can you give me some advice? And then we tell them, right? Because we think we're the experts. This shifts things around a little bit and sort of says, well, they probably actually have the answer. They probably have a solution in there. You've just got to unlock it, right? And as a good leader, you're trying to unlock that. And sometimes that's true with the employer relationships. They've got all the answers. You're just going to ask questions that sort of pose them in a different way, or come at them in a different way. And they're like, oh, I never thought of it that way, right? So humble inquiry, if you get a chance, take a look at the book or take a video of it. It has 4 types of these questions. And as you can see, the pure humble inquiry, which is the approach that I tend to take when I'm going naively into a business, because what do I know, right? Is the more open way. That's going to give that person you're talking to more control, more authority about the conversation, rather than going in and say, why don't you do it this way? Right? That's shut down the conversation. It's kind of loaded with judgment, which shuts down every conversation that can be. And it's often, when you think about it again in your own business, you might have leaders who are out there who are very much more kind of that prompting question or diagnostic, which can, again, be loaded with judgment, and then often shuts down any conversation, eliminates any trust that may have been there, right? And those are the things we're trying to avoid. But I think this is a really good tool for your own organizations and your own business. And if you're in a leadership role, it's just a great thing to come around. All right, it is, I think, right at 11, right? Oh, 10:59, ahead of time. Awesome. Let's take a 7-minute break. Such a random number, but let's take a 7-minute break. 11:07. Let's get back. I'm going to start without you if you're not back, and we're going to talk a little bit about trust when we come back. So I'm going to just move into this little framework paradigm that we use when we think about partners. So as everyone knows, I have this fancy title, Director of Partnerships, which I've been with the organization 25 years. I could be the partner of apples. It doesn't really matter what my title is. But the idea of partnership is clearly really important with employers, right? This is what we're talking about. We've got these 6 hours of webinars about it, right? So can't hammer that home enough. But partners are everywhere, right? It's our job seekers. It's the families of job seekers. It's in our case, we do a lot of meaningful day work. So it's those community centers and resources. It's vendors. And that's why we talked about kind of reaching out to your agency and board connections, right? The board members, they're partners, right? And we're all in this together. And what I'm trying to do in my cheap seats of the partnership world is trying to move people up this pyramid, up this partnership paradigm, from just being transactional, right? So a job seeker just being a customer, or a family coming in and just being a customer, to being, hey, maybe be supportive, be a friend. Being a partner, reciprocating in some way. You know, with families or boards, that might be donating, giving of their time, volunteering. And then you kind of move up the scale. And this really applies to employers, where we're going to this trusted advisor. And you want to be at a place when you've got these employer relationships where you are at a trusted advisor. They come to you when they're thinking about staffing. They come to you maybe when they're thinking about their team and team dynamics and workforce issues and stuff like that. They want to see you as a trusted advisor. And eventually we want employers, right, to be champions, right? We want them to champion the cause that we're all championing every day, inclusive employment. And I won't probably touch on it today around the Business Advisory Council, but I'll probably put it into the last webinar. But that idea that they are thinking about the cause as a whole, not just their own issues, and being networkers and champions and doing our work, right? I think I said this last month. I'm lazy. I want other people to do my work, right? And so if I can get employers on board doing this networking and reaching out and creating that awareness, damn, I can just step in the consideration phase and go from there, right? Makes life a lot easier. And so this idea of getting trust, right? That higher trust in that, the right-hand side, this graph it's a very simple graph, right? That idea that we're going to get to higher trust with people is the combination of higher credibility and more personal connection and empathy and caring and compassion about what they do. So it's just a simple chart, but I really like the idea of thinking about people less transactionally as customers, which is kind of, the used car salesman, right? Okay, I sold you my car, see ya, to kind of building that long-term partner development. And so this idea of kind of a trusted advisor is actually a thing. It's a concept. David Meister is, again, another business leader who's got an author series and training and makes $1 gajillion out of this idea of a trusted advisor. It talks about kind of like that partnership, right? It's made up of how we do the service with somebody, how we value each other, the communication, the loyalty and satisfaction kind of bridges to trust. But the beauty of this is there's a math formula for this. And again, sorry that I'm putting you through a math problem on a Thursday morning, but you got to kind of roll with me here a little bit. So this idea of trustworthiness, David Meister comes up with, is made up of a simple fraction, right? And everyone remembers their fractions from whatever grade that was, right? You have a numerator on the top and a denominator on the bottom. Numerators are good. If you have more of that, your formula goes up. You're more trustworthy. If the things on the top, the numerator, go up, better, right? Things on the bottom, the denominator, bad. So let's talk through this a little bit, right? And again, feel free to use the chat if you think of other ideas or other components to these four elements, right? So credibility, right? You got to be credible for that trust to sort of develop. And you're not credible from the get-go, right? They don't know me from Adam, right? I've got a fancy business card. I've got this fancy title, director of partnerships. So what? I've got to sell myself. I've got to put myself forward. I've got to be credible. And it's interesting. And I hammer home on LinkedIn here. We had this relationship. We still have this relationship with Champions Oncology. So there's a very big biotech world around us here in Montgomery County, Maryland. And Champions Oncology does a lot of research around oncology and cancer. And we met this group through a chamber event, and the human resources person there was very interested in figuring out how to do inclusive employment. So we furthered the conversation. What we didn't realize, and they eventually kind of did hire someone, and they eventually became part of our business advisory council. One of the things that we learned from them at a BAC meeting was they looked at our LinkedIn, our organizational, not my personal, our organizational LinkedIn account, a profile, and that said that we were a legitimate business to them, right? It wasn't necessarily our website. I was so surprised. Our website's okay, it's not great, but it was that LinkedIn profile that had stories, it had testimonials, it had depth to it. It was many years, long old, and that was their factor that they used to sort of say, you're legit. You're not just a bunch of yahoos coming in and telling me you think you can do this stuff, right? And so, credibility is really important. So getting testimonials from where you've had success, that builds your credibility. Having a long resume of people that you've connected with, employers that you've helped, of course, that helps. But that credibility, really important, right? You got to build that to sort of build that trust. Reliability, right? What do we think about with reliability? We think about showing up on time, right? Don't come in 10 minutes late. Could be there early, right? When you say you're going to deliver something, if you've got a proposal you're going to give to them, and you said give them a time and a date and beat it, you can manage your expectations around that, but like deliver things on time. So that reliability is really impacted. Don't lie, right? Don't make stuff up. It's often sometimes you're kind of caught in the moment. You think, oh, I better say the right thing, or I better say what I think they want me to hear. No. You've got to be factually correct. You've got to be fact checked, because you're going to get checked, right? And you will not be seen as reliable, and your trust will be in the kind of in the toilet. Intimacy. So when I first saw this, I was like, what intimacy? That's not quite the right word we're looking for here. And of course, it's not what we think about when we think about personal intimacy. It's thinking about professional intimacy, right? And it goes back to it just reiterates the things that we've talked about, right? I genuinely care. I am genuinely concerned about how you professionally are doing and how your organization is doing. I genuinely have a connection, and vice versa, right? And that leads to more intimacy that may spread into personal, right? You might become friends. You might be invited to their home, or some personal things beyond kind of the professional. But these three factors on the top: credibility, reliability, intimacy. Do good, raise those up. Higher numbers there, you're going to be more trustworthy, right? But it's not as simple as just those three things, because this factor of self-orientation, right? So when I think about what's in it for me, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the WIIFM. Feels like it's kind of some satellite radio station, but what's in it for me, right? And often we go into these situations saying, okay, I got to get a job out of this. I got to get a job. My boss is saying I got to get a job, and we're just focused on that, and we miss everything else, right? And when we do that, that's going to come across. that employer, that relationship is going to know you're just thinking about yourself, right? You're just trying to weasel the questions to get to what you're looking for. I've seen this before, right? I've met 100 of you people before, right? So that idea of that humble inquiry, sort of, it's not about you listening, it's about them, gaining more credibility with them, reliability and intimacy with them, and less about me, right? Does that gel? Does that make sense? Yeah. And so just a follow up here, some ways to kind of increase credibility. Like I said, speak the truth, show you've done your homework, right? Don't go into this not having done any research. Too often, especially new people in the field, they just kind of roam into a meeting and they don't really know why they're there. They don't know the context, and they're not adding something to it. And it's not like, again, you have to be steeped with years and years of experience. You can become pretty expert in an industry or a topic or a business by just doing a little bit of research, and people will know that you've done that, right? So when you interview people, those of you that interview people, I always ask, like, what do you know about us? I mean, did you even look at our website? Did you look at our LinkedIn thing? Come on now, you got to do the bare minimum at least, right? Do some research. Increase reliability, combine your words with presence, right? Stand behind those things. Make lots of small promises. Don't promise them the world. Don't say, I've got 10 job seekers for you that they're gonna fill all of your staffing needs, when you know you don't even have one, right? Again, build that kind of round using their terminology, right? So speak their language. Remember, those who were with us last month, there was that Zoom crazy call. Sometimes the language is weird, and feel free to ask questions to understand, but try to use their terminology if you're in an industry with them. Listen with empathy and intimacy, address people by name. And then this idea, so lowering self-orientation, give away ideas, right? Really important. If you've got information that's useful, you've talked to another employer in the same industry who has struggled with the same pain points, and they had some solutions, share it, right? Put it out there. You don't have to name the business or you don't have to but say, hey, I was at another location and they seem to be struggling with the same thing, and this is what they did. If you've just boosted your credibility, right? You're there to help them and solve that. And then relax your mind, right? Stop thinking about what you're trying to get out of it. Stop thinking about what the goal is. Stop thinking about your boss saying, I've got to get 20 of these things done, because that gets in the way for sure. Okay, so just, I don't have to talk about this a lot, but why be curious? We have to be, right? We have to understand what the business is about. We have to understand all of these things, because otherwise we cannot be a staffing solution organization. We can't provide customized staffing. We can't figure out who the right screened people are, and we can't figure out the right job match, right? So this curiosity is critical. And if you're not willing to be curious about this, you're not going to get good matches. And then what happens? We're talking about this turnover cycle, right? Every 30, 60 days, somebody's leaving their job and I got to go do it again. And that's the cycle we're trying to avoid here. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about how to put some of this stuff into practice, how we can see the business and work tasks, understand the job, and find the problems and deepen the relationship. So I think this is very big, and everybody knows this. You got to go see it, right? You got to put your hands on it. You got to, as Mary said, kind of hover over and get into the computer if you need to do a digital tour. But you've got to go put your hands on what we're talking about. What is the work? What are the tasks? What's happening in that organization? But before you go, do some homework. Please, 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 please do some homework. The web, yeah, we've heard of it. There's the internet, has lots of information on it. It's pretty straightforward. You've got to go to their website. Now, some of these small organizations don't have websites, right? They might have a Facebook site. They might even have just a TikTok site, right? And I don't even know anything about TikTok, right? But find some basic information about them, because you will find some. It's there. And it doesn't take too long to find, even if it's just some basic size, number of employees, who's some of the employees there, what are their strategies, what they're trying to do, because then you come in and make credibility, because you said, hey, I noticed on your website that you're trying to grow in Eastern Kentucky. Oh, whoa, okay, yeah, let's talk about that, right? You gain credibility because you actually did some research. And then sometimes just go beyond the company website just to sort of see where else they might be in the news. If you're in a very local, small area, they might be seen as promoting the Little League or helping out with a local faith community or whatever it may be. those are also just nuggets of information. Say, I was really interested. I'm curious about why you connected with the Little League, and they'll tell you their own personal story about how the Little League changed their lives or something. Deepening the relationship every time with all of these nuggets. And then if you're meeting a specific person, you know, you should be, right? You're not just meeting the business, you're meeting a specific person. Go on LinkedIn. Hopefully they're on there. Not always they are, or they have a very thin profile, which again may give you an opportunity to help them have a better profile, right? But LinkedIn is fantastic, right? You're gonna get their resume, you're gonna get their non-professional connections, right? If they're on a board or if they volunteer somewhere, which again gives you more insights about the individual. You're going to see if there's accolades that they've gotten or accomplishments. You can talk a little bit about their educational background and maybe geographically, because you'll see, hey, they used to live in DC or they used to live on the West Coast or whatever it may be. So these are just conversation starters, right? This is all about building the rapport. And again, it says you did your homework, and that's all we're trying to do here. And it doesn't matter how small or how big that meeting is, you got to do some homework. You got to come in with some thoughts. You got to come in with some questions. I'm curious about, and you can totally use that. I am curious, because it just opens up. It's not leading. It's not judgmental. It's just, I'm curious. Like your organization supports, again, Little League. I'm just stuck on that one. I don't know why. So just kind of think that through. And then beyond LinkedIn, if you put that person's name in there, you'll see if they are elsewhere, right? They might be on the board of an organization, and it just might not be on their LinkedIn profile. And those are, then that means that's something that's important to them, right? And you just want to kind of put that information out there. You can weave it into the conversation, but this is really important. It's kind of starting with that research before you go. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because this is literally a whole other training, right? How to do a job analysis or a site analysis. There are forms out there. The one that we use is from Rick McAllister. It's called the Job Skills Inventory. He allows us to share that out because it's got all of his information on it. And I will kind of use that as a resource. You probably have your own tool. Griffin Hammis, another group of organizations we use, uses a job analysis record. People call it whatever they are. The theory is, in order for you to do a better match, you need to understand the job, understand the business, understand the culture, all the things we've talked about, and you need a way to record that so it can be potentially transferred to another staff member who might take over the caseload and might have a better fit. You just need to be able to record that, right? Because again, it's just gathering information, deepening the connection with the organization. I assume that everybody is using those. I will say, again, I've been in the field 25 years. When we first started, everybody was using them. They were using them diligently, and they were great. I would say in the last 10 years, it's kind of waned, and people aren't using these as much. So I really encourage people to kind of get back to these if you've maybe slid away from them a little bit. They're really useful in also thinking about preparing oneself as like, what am I trying to gather when I go to this tour? And this job skills inventory is 11 pages long and has 56 components. There is no way I'm filling this thing out when I do a tour, right? There's no way. But you get the highlight reel, and then you fill out as much as you can. And then again, there may be gaps. You're like, oh gosh, I totally missed the culture section, or I totally missed the transportation section. It's giving you reasons to reconnect. It's giving you reasons to better understand. It's giving you reasons to interact, which is, again, this further deepening of the conversation. All right, this is a very quick video. I told you we're going to talk about lean techniques, and the idea around lean built out of the manufacturing processes of how do we get processes and systems and overall businesses more efficient, right? Leaner. And so the big thing here, and something that we've taken away and has been incredibly useful in finding jobs and jobs behind jobs, is this idea of these 8 wastes that are out there. And this video does a much better job than I about explaining what those wastes are. But let's listen in, and just thumbs up that you've got the sound when it comes on.
The 8 wastes. Lean aims to maximize customer value by eliminating waste through continuous improvement. An abundant quantity of waste can occur in the workplace, and anything that doesn't add any value for the customer must be considered waste. Wastes are seen as barriers against productivity. Let's take a look at the 8 wastes in more detail. Defects. Defects are things that result in needing to be reworked, be scrapped, or changed due to incorrect information. Overproduction. Production that is more than needed or produced before it is needed. Waiting. Time can be wasted if you have to wait for the next step in the process. Transportation. The unnecessary movement of products, materials or information. Non-utilized talent. When employers underutilize people's talent, skills, and knowledge, it is a waste of resources and skills. Inventory. When excess products and materials are not being processed, this creates related holding costs. Motion. Unnecessary movement of people due to poor workstation layout, over-movement of materials and poor planned usage of equipment. Extra processing. More work or higher quality than is required by the customer. A good way to remember the 8 wastes is the acronym downtime. Thanks for watching. We hope
Sorry, I muted there. So thoughts, ideas. I knew about these different 8 wastes, but I didn't realize downtime. I'd like kind of love that idea of an acronym there. I think for us, and again, please put into the chat thoughts of how you've used this or have seen this, or how maybe incidentally you've kind of come across these techniques. Non-utilized talent has been incredibly important for us. So too often we find when we're going to especially small and medium-sized businesses, we find that these incredibly well-paid individuals are doing incredibly straightforward, routine, repetitive tasks. And you're like, why? Right? It's kind of already kind of a curious question, like, why is that happening? And it's often just because, right? It just emerged and they were small and they got a little bit bigger and they didn't really rethink it. And it's an opportunity, right? It's a huge opportunity to take somebody who may be coming in at minimum wage or just above minimum wage and reducing their costs, right? Or taking that unutilized talent and making them be out there selling more or creating more value. So at a lab, I think I used this example last month too, we have a young person that we found an opportunity because they had their lab analysts who are well-educated, well-trained, well-paid individuals doing a lot of the prep work for their kind of routine testing. And so we realized there's an opportunity for setting up the specimens, which was just a process that had to be done every day, and you couldn't leave them and make 100 of them and last a week, because they just wouldn't. They had to be done on a daily basis. Just creating specimens, which was really to take a mixture of some products, put it on a little petri dish, move on, and make 100 of them, right? And that was an opportunity right from the get-go that we could fill and take away and allow their higher paid people to do better reporting, do more official kind of testing so they could sell more of their services, right? And so that non-utilized talent has, for us, been incredibly useful, incredibly helpful in thinking through opportunities. And again, it's not like a judgment, you're doing it wrong, small business. It's just saying it's an opportunity. It doesn't always lead to kind of a placement opportunity, but it's just a way of thinking about things differently, right? Does that resonate with people? Have people had the same kind of experience as other of these 8 wastes that have worked for you in kind of looking at opportunities? If so, throw it in the chat. I think those are important to share.
Hope this video has.
All right, we're going to break out again, Brandon. Looking at my time here, we're going to do 7. Let's do 7 minutes. That should be fine. I don't know, 7. Lucky 7, I guess. We're going to have you guys break out into groups again and discuss kind of, have an opportunity to share with yourselves kind of where you've used the 8 wastes of lean. So remember, defects, overproduction, waiting, non-utilized talent. We talked about transportation, things taking too long to move around, inner space, inventory, too much inventory usually, motion and extra processing, doing too much work on things, downtime. Spend some time in your breakouts talking about that and ideas and thoughts of things that have worked for you. And we'll see you back in 7 minutes. Great, everybody is coming back. Hopefully your conversations were vibrant and active and people kind of learn from each other. If there's, again, any aha moments or any things that you took up from your group that you'd like to share out, put it into the chat. Again, you're hopefully learning a couple of things from me, but you're going to learn a lot from your colleagues and peers throughout the state. It's interesting, and you'll see kind of a couple of examples I've got here on the screen. As we were kind of wrapping up the breakout room, I was just thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be useful to have like kind of a library, right? Like of all of these things that people have done. And I wonder again in Kentucky across all providers, VR, if like we just could have examples, right? And they can be opportunities with maybe videos or just even just a little snippet of how we've used our techniques to kind of open up these opportunities in the range of industries and the range of job tasks and those kind of things. I've always thought that would be a great thing to do because it's just useful as you're thinking about, right? Like it's just being armed. Hey, I'm going to go into a hospital. You know, for us, we had National Institutes of Health. We worked with a clinical center as a hospital, and it wasn't empty crash carts, but the crash carts didn't have all the things that the nurses needed. And so the nurses were going to give patient care and then realize they don't have the right size, gowns. So they have to then go to the central supply area, or worst case scenario, they have to go to the basement of the building to go get stuff. It's like ridiculous. And so just redesigning things and having a dedicated person to make sure those crash carts are full and complete and set up and organized. In the same vein, at the same hospital, we kind of walked around the hospital, and we have a project search site there. So we've got a great relationship, a very deep relationship. But we realized they have 630 hand sanitizer units throughout the building. And one of the things that they had, so JCAHO is their joint accreditation of healthcare organizations, is their auditors that they come in every year and they write them up for this and write them up for that. And one of the things that they got written up a little bit about was their kind of immunology and their techniques around keeping people healthy and safe. And so they said, we'll invest money to make sure our JCAHO is working by having people dedicated to making sure all 600 of those hand sanitizer units are full, the batteries are changed, and they're clean, right? Like, all right, we can help you with some of that, right? And so it's just those kind of things. I just wish we had kind of a whole list of there. And these are just other examples. I mean, literally, Lost Folders, an accounting firm, accounting partners, they keep their stuff to themselves. They don't want it to go back to a central supply. So when the next person comes in, they're like, where's that? So it just was an opportunity again to have somebody in their file room to kind of just figure out where things are, sort them, to get them together, manage the process, and then kind of be more efficient, right? It's a lean technique in an accounting firm. And then incorrect delivery. So they kind of really needed somebody to quality check the inventory and the order controls that were going onto the delivery routes before the drivers left out. So again, creating a carvable position. So lots of different opportunities. Mary put in the chat, listen for terms employers using, overstaffed, understaffed. Yeah. We don't have capacity. Yeah, those are really important. Careful if that waste is something the employer can pinpoint to. Yeah, it's a balance, right? Like sort of, you ain't an expert, right? So you can't go in there. But then, one of the things that we use here at Seek is, it's like, I'm curious, right? It's a little less threatening, right? It's a little less judgy. It's a more kind of like, I'm just interested, like, why are those boxes all sitting there, right? It's not saying, hey, your place is a mess, but it's, I'm just intrigued. Like, is this something, are you doing something with these? And they're like, oh yeah, man, we don't, at the office supply place too, it's like, yeah, we don't really organize our returns very well. I'm like, okay, let's talk about that, right? It's all those opportunities. So you've just got to think about a gentle way to approach those, like you aren't some kind of expert in there too. All right, excellent. Let's move forward. Again, so we talked about before you go, research, do your homework, right? In the tour, in the meeting, you've got all of these things. You've got these job skills inventories. You've got a way of kind of gleaning information using your curiosity and nice ways of asking non-judgy questions. But after they leave, you got to do something, right? You got to follow up, right? You either owe them something. You want to kind of make sure you're walking away with a next step, whether it's a follow-up that I'm going to come back, whether it's I'm going to take what I've seen and written up and analyze it and send it back to you and give you some thoughts, maybe a proposal or two. And again, we're going to talk more about that next month. But you want to kind of figure out some necessary, tangible action items, right? So it might be, hey, I remember we talked about the returns challenges that you were having. Do you mind if we talk a little bit more about that at a follow-up, right? you're looking for those opportunities to have another interaction. Doesn't have to be a tour again. Could be a follow-up phone call. It could be a Zoom call, whatever it may be. Or again, it might be, hey, you really talked a lot about this career direction for people in your field. We happen to have a job seeker that's really interested in that. Could we set up a time to meet and learn more about that career opportunity? Just little snippets of ways of reconnecting and keeping the consideration going on and deepening that relationship. You follow up, you got to follow up, right? You don't follow up, you don't really care about the relationship. So that's a thank you. It's as simple as a thank you. It's as simple as what I took away. It's as simple as what I'm leaning with and what I'm thinking about. And it has an action, a next step. What am I going to do? What I hope you may be doing for me as well, and what we can do together. So it's very action forward. There's a slide that I'm not going to show today, but I'll probably weave it into next month. Is 80% of people don't follow up after the first contact. And this is just a sales thing, right? It's like, what? I don't quite get that, but okay. And it goes down to sort of saying 80% of sales are made between the 5th and the 12th point of contact, point of interaction, right? So this stuff takes time, and you're always looking for my next opportunity to interact with that person, because that's really key here. Is I need to have this relationship keep going. I don't want this to drop, and it's on me as much as it's on the employer too, but it's really much on me. So follow up kind of immediately with a thank you, follow up a week later. And if things still aren't kind of gelling, follow up with a month and come at this at a different way, right? The first way is just kind of thank you for the time and your opportunity with some distinct, discrete, tangible asks in there. A week later saying, just following up, hopefully you got my message. Yeah, we talked about this, point them out. You also, when you're following up, you're trying to figure out what's the rhythm for the person, right? Do I need to get there at 8 a.m. with that message, or do I get them at 6 p.m., right? Or do I middle of the day? And you don't know, right? You ask, I'm curious, right? That's kind of the best way to kind of information. But sometimes you just got to try different ways of reaching out to them, and different modes of kind of figuring that out. So that's kind of your follow up. Very quickly here, I think sometimes, again, just kind of reiterating the importance of the job analysis and the job skills inventory. You're consultative sales, right? You're looking to be a trusted advisor. So the information you glean through your job analysis is really important. Don't throw that stuff away. Keep it on hand. It could be useful for another employer. It's probably going to be really useful for the employer you're working with. So really sort of figure out how to record those and keep them live and keep them updated and keep them as part of the conversation going forward. And just to sort of kind of wrap up here, so I have time for some questions. This is just a slide I've thrown out a number of different times of how each of stakeholders can kind of keep the conversation going and deepening the connection. Sometimes the job placement isn't there, right? The budget's not there, or it's not the right time, or whatever it may be, but you want to keep that conversation going. So you might want to think about, is there a way of creating some work-based learning opportunities? We'll talk more about the BAC, the Business Advisory Council, next month, but that's a way of engaging them and helping, because they may want to help, right? They may want to sort of figure out how to help you with the cause. They themselves can't, but they can be professional mentors. Career exploration, like I talked about, there may be somebody you're working with who's interested in a manufacturing kind of type of role, and maybe there isn't a role right there, but maybe we can sort of think about professional guidance, some career coaching, all of that kind of stuff. Hearing from successful activities from other employees. So you may have met with a manufacturer, but then had success with another manufacturer. Share that, right? Get that article out to them, get that experience out to them. Maybe connect employers. So hearing employers to employers, hearing each other, sometimes better than us talking, right? Often better than us talking. So again, if you've got a chance to connect, if you've got a chance to go back to those 5-minute favors, right? A referral. Hey, someone I know would really could help you out here, or could be a potential customer. If you've got ongoing educational activities, or the state of Kentucky is doing educational opportunities, invite them into the mission and the cause. And then I think I harped on this last time. You need to recognize and celebrate the employers. I know sometimes we think, well, it's their job. They got to hire people, right? I'm like, yeah, but they don't have to hire the person you're working with, right? And so celebrate and recognize that. NDEAM is coming up in October. Hopefully you're already formulating some ways that even small scale that you can recognize and celebrate and invite those prospects into. I think I said this last time, but at our October event, it's about 100 people show up, and 10, 12 people might be prospects, people we're courting, they're in this consideration phase. They all come out like, oh my gosh, what do we have to do? Let's figure this out, because they've had an emotional connection with something, they've seen the success, and they're hearing from other employers, right? And that just takes it over the finishing line typically, for most people. And again, in the chat, if there's other ideas or things or thoughts that work for you, throw it in the chat. And just recapping, right? So we've talked a lot about curiosity. There's a lot of curious nerds out there. I follow that cause. It's really important. You need to, when you're hiring for people in this field, if you're looking at bringing people along, you've got to think about how, in your practices, in working with colleagues or your team, it's like, how do I build curiosity in this group, right? And it doesn't have to be about the work that you're doing. It could be curious about anything, right? I got this great present. I think I didn't tell you this last time because I only just got it. For Father's Day, my wife gave me this present of a daddy and daughter art class. Well, I think I'm an artist, but I'm not very good, right? So we're learning how to paint acrylically. It just opens my mind, right, to different things and different techniques. And I'm curious about this artist and how she does this. Just opens your mind. We want to be trusted advisors. That's kind of what we're aspiring to. Lean into understanding the business. Think about those 8 techniques of waste. We're problem finders, not problem solvers. We hopefully will solve the problem, but first find the problem. Again, be diligent with the job analysis, follow up, and keep giving throughout the process so that the employer is engaged and checking in with you as we go forward. So we are 11:50. I wanted to leave, that was one of the feedbacks, plenty of time for questions. If you have questions, this is the time to throw them in the chat. And Mary or Brandon, if I've missed some along the way, please keep me honest, because I do go fast sometimes. But if there are questions in there, and while we're kind of questions are coming up, I want to kind of leave you with this thought, right? It isn't about trying. It's like do or do not. There is no try. Yoda is the master. In the survey that you get that Brandon put into the chat, and you'll receive an email, there'll be the same thing that was for the first one. There's going to be a list of things that I want you to contemplate doing around kind of this consideration phase. So again, we'll kind of reflect on that next time we meet, but think about what you may do going forward that's going to move your employer relations along and deepening the rapport and deepening the understanding and building for long-term relations. And I've got one last slide that I will share. I like to do polls. So this is a poll EV. We did it last month for those of you who are there. I've learned that I can make that bigger, which is kind of cool. Use your camera or go onto the website there, pollev.com/Steve Lanks. If your camera, take a picture and just let me know how we did today. If it sucked, let me know. If it was fabulous, let me know. If it was just ho-hum, I'm okay with that. And again, you'll get a survey from the team. Please be honest, please rate it. If there's things that I'm missing, if there's things I haven't covered, we still have one more opportunity to tackle them better, differenter, more curiouser, or something like that. Okay. And if there are any questions, we still have a couple of minutes left.